Hi guys! So today I wanted to talk to you about the topic of overlap between different planners when you're using more than one. As you can see here, I have this giant stack of planners which are pretty much in daily use, and so you can imagine that there's probably going to be some issues of overlapping between them. And so I wanted to talk about my approach to that and how I deal with it and whether I think that it should be avoided or embraced. So first of all, a little bit of history, which a lot of you know. For many years, like probably most of us before we got into the planner community, I just had one planner which I used for everything. But because I wasn't at that point like really into planning, I didn't plan or track nearly as many aspects of my life as I do now. And so I think if you have a reasonably simple planner setup where you're just noting down appointments and then, occasional to-dos as I was, then you don't really maybe need more than one planner or think you need more than one planner, and there's no issue of overlap. But as soon as I got into the planner community and started really thinking about what the different things that planning could do were, and how I could kind of be getting so much more out of it than I had been, and also obviously became a planner addict and acquired many different planners and wanted to find ways of using them all, then I ended up with a large number of planners. So these planners are all used for different things, which is really the way that I like to approach planning with multiple planners. So it started off rather innocently with branching out to try Hobonichi as a home planner, and then I ended up with a personal planner and all kinds of different more niche planners. And so the situation that we're in now is where I have, I think, about maybe 7 different planners that overlap. So there's my personal planner, my work planner, my daily planner, my pretty planner, my kind of dirty home planner for home tasks, my home appointments planner, and the most recent addition, which you haven't seen before. I mean, you've probably seen this planner before, but not on my channel, my evening planner. So I'll explain all about that in a minute. So I'll just go through each of these planners in turn and explain where overlap occurs and what I do about it. So first off, we'll start with my work planner, because this was for many years my only planner, and I guess I didn't really think of it at that point as a work planner, but it was primarily devoted to study and then work. So the way that I think of this is, I guess in some ways this is my main planner, because as those of you who've seen my work planner already know that it's quite elaborate, and there's a lot of different stuff that goes on at work. I'm a lecturer, so there's teaching and there's research and there's applying for grants and there's admin and like book projects, and there's all kinds of different components to it that need lots of planning and tracking in various ways. But appointments and tasks and ideas and stuff like that. So I quite like to keep the different aspects of my life separate, and that is how I approach my planners, in that I like having a work planner and then a personal planner, which are for different things, as opposed to a lot of people have, like, say, a stay-at-home planner, which is bigger, and then an on-the-go planner, which is smaller, but it might have a lot of the same information in it. And I think that that is a fantastic way to go if your circumstances will allow you to do that. And I've often thought, oh, I wish I could do that, because on days when I go into university, I have to take this with me and also this with me. And so, it's a lot to schlep around, and it would be nice if I could just take, say, this and then leave this at home, or, leave my bigger planner at home, let's say. And I've pondered the idea of that, and it just doesn't work for me because of my work circumstances. But that is certainly one way where you would have 2 planners that overlap, where you have, say, more information in the one at home, and then the on-the-go one is just kind of like a distilled version of that, where you put in your appointments and maybe have a shopping list or something like that, and that's all you need to take out with you. So that is one approach to overlap between different planners that I don't really have in the same way, because rather than having like a bigger home planner and then a smaller on-the-go planner, I have different planners for different purposes. And I think some people also use a combination of those 2 approaches, where they might have a bigger stay-at-home planner and then a smaller on-the-go planner, but then also different planners for different more specialized purposes as well. But the way that I think of it is I have one planner per aspect of my life. So the general idea is that they won't overlap. That's, I think, kind of my ultimate aim. And it's interesting because I think I always assumed that that's how everybody would approach it. And then I saw a video by Miss Vicky B where she mentioned that she's quite happy to copy the same information multiple times in different planners, and that's how things get stuck in her head and how she learns, which I thought was really interesting because it had never occurred to me to do it like that. And I've pondered that because obviously putting the same information in different planners, for one, for Planner Addict, that would be a way that you could find a use for more planners. And also it was just a different approach that I hadn't considered before. So I think I have incorporated that to an extent, which has led me to have a bit more overlap than I did last year before I'd started thinking about that approach. But as a general rule, I like to have one planner per topic. So we'll start with my work planner. So the work planner has everything to do with work, obviously, and I try to keep it limited to that. So, for example, here on the monthly view, I put in all of my work appointments so that I can see when I'll be free to book something else. But because I need to know that, if there's a non-work related appointment that, is relevant, then I also put that in. So for example, here I have a dentist appointment. So the dentist appointment is not really work related, although it is actually my work dentist. The dentist is based at the university, but still, it's not a work thing. It's, it's like a personal thing. But I put it in here because if I had to book a meeting with a student, for example, I wouldn't want to book it at the same time as a dentist appointment. And then the same thing goes for the weekly view. The weekly view is just used for work appointments and work to-dos. But for example, this evening, I was supposed to be going out, James and I were going to go out for dinner with my friend, and in the event that was cancelled because she just got back from a long trip and it didn't work out. But I put that in my planner even though it's not a work thing, even though she's actually also a colleague, because all of my friends are, most of my friends are also colleagues, but it wasn't a work event. But I put that in here because I needed to know that if I was going to plan on doing some work this evening, that I shouldn't because I'm going out for dinner with my friend. So these sorts of things would also go in my personal planner. So this is the current week. This is the same week in my personal planner. I don't use the monthly spread in my personal planner for planning. I use it for tracking various things. So that isn't an issue. There's no redundancy or no overlap that comes up there. But in the weekly spread, so you see, for example, this Wagamama, this was the dinner event that was going to happen. And I also have, I think, I don't have the dentist appointment. So this is a good example of what I actually should have. I should put the dentist appointment down there in my personal planner as well. How it usually happens with my personal planning is that I put in non-work related events like going to the cinema or something, and then I also put in non-work related tasks. So usually with the tasks there's no need for overlap. I'm just going to put in this dentist 2:45. So this is normally the sort of thing that I would put in both planners. And I think there are actually, I would say, the way I look at it, there are two different categories of what you might find overlapping. There's appointments and there's tasks. So in terms of the appointments, I'd say between my work and personal planners, it's really the appointments are the things that I like to have overlap, because the dentist appointment in this case is something that's useful to have in my personal planner in case I need to arrange for something else on the same, like say on the same day. But usually I don't worry about it too much as long as it's in one of the planners that I look at all the time, because if it's in my work planner and I'm going in to work, because as I said, the dentist is at my university. So say I'm going into work, I'm going to be there all day anyway, I'll be looking at this planner and not so much at this one. So I think when you have multiple planners and you have this issue of overlap or lack of overlap, then you also kind of have to be a bit aware of which planner you're more likely to be looking at, and then you're kind of covered in a way. So, but I like to be careful that I have all of the appointments and events in both of them if there's any chance that there might be confusion otherwise. Because say we're having a sofa delivered, which is very exciting. So as you can see here, we have sofa coming. So I booked this on Sunday because I know I'm always at home on Sundays. But if this had been a Monday, then I would kind of, like, I would have to check the work planner before I arranged it, because I would want to know what was, like, you know, whether I was in work on Monday or not. Because usually I'm at home on Mondays, but this particular Monday, this coming Monday, I have to go in. So usually the work planner I kind of think of as my main planner, like I said, and this is kind of like an almost a secondary planner. So my main issue is it for this type of thing to be in here. So I won't put all of my work appointments in here because that would be overkill. But, you know, I generally know that if something is going on, like say the dentist, I'll be like, well, obviously I can't be in all day to wait for the sofa to come because have this dentist appointment. So clearly that means I'll be out. But usually, you know, I kind of have in my head a general idea, like if I'm in on Monday, if I'm at home on Monday or in the university. But I like to make sure that that sort of thing does appear in both. So I have to like kind of sync them. And usually when I make the appointment, I'll just write them in both of them if I feel like it's necessary. So it doesn't take up too much time, but it is a little bit more work than if you just wrote it in one place and then not in another. But with this kind of thing, I'm already writing it in the monthly view and the weekly view in here anyway. So it's like writing it in a third place. It doesn't bother me that much. And I like to use my planners, so it's not really an issue. But then there are other things that I feel like I don't need to have in both. So like, for example, I said I don't put my work schedule in here because that would really be redundant. And I feel like it's not necessary. And then there are other things that go in my personal planner that don't go in the work planner because they're irrelevant. So like, for example, I have to do security duty at our synagogue on Saturday. And because Saturday is my day off and I don't work, it doesn't matter. I don't need to put it in here because I wouldn't be doing anything else work related then anyway. So it's like Saturday's kind of, you know, during the day, it's generally blank in my work planner. Or the same thing, we have a friend coming on Friday evening, and I haven't put that in here because it doesn't matter. It's nothing to do with work. So I don't need that degree of overlap. So really, it's just appointments, and there isn't any overlap of tasks between these. So with my work planner, I'd say this is probably the most distinct in a way because I don't need to copy this information into this planner. However, there is overlap between my work planner and these two planners. So this planner is my daily planner. And this was the third addition to my kind of two-part planner system, which I was saying for a long time, I really only need my work planner and my personal planner. This planner was the third one that got added in that I would say became an essential part of my core planning system, even though if I really needed to, I could survive without it, but I love having it so much that I don't want to. So the three of these, my three Hobonichis, are like a little triumvirate of beautiful planners that run my life. So this is kind of like a fusion of these two because these have all of the appointments and tasks. And then this one, a lot of you already know this because you've heard me talk about this one before. This has all of my daily to-dos. And so I don't do any forward planning in this. I don't use the monthly spreads. I don't plan anything out for the future in this. All I do is the night before or the morning of the day, I will write down all of the things that I know that I have to do in chronological order, or what I hope will be the order that I do them in, whether they're work or personal. So I will draw from both of these planners. So I don't really put appointments in here unless I have to go out. I use this planner at home. I don't take it with me. So far, at least, I've resisted taking 3 planners on the go with me, which I think would be really silly even for me. But I will copy down anything that I have to do. And if there's an appointment, then, you know, like I'll list it, but I won't rely on it for that information. It's really just to get an overview of what my day is going to look like. So obviously there's going to be some overlap. In fact, this planner really consists largely of overlap with these two. So one might say, like, why do you have this planner? It's totally redundant. You could just look at these two. And the reason is that I really like to have this different presentation. I like to see everything that's going to happen in the whole day. And as I've mentioned before, I like to put in here things that I wouldn't put in either of these planners because they're routine things, like check emails, get dressed, make tea, stuff that doesn't really feel important enough or unique enough to put in one of these planners, but that I still have to do and will take some time. And so when I want to see exactly what my day will look like, and also if I'm just feeling like chaotic or anxious, I just like to put it all down, no matter how basic or silly it is, because then I can see, okay, like in the next hour, I have an idea of exactly what I'm going to be doing. And this is not necessary. I think for a lot of people, maybe they wouldn't feel this is necessary, but I really enjoy it. And it makes me feel like I know exactly what structure my day will have. So there is a huge amount of overlap, particularly with the personal planner. With the work planner, what I usually do is in here in my weekly spread, I have for days that I'm going to be at home, when this is more relevant, I write the overview of the main thing I'm going to be working on that day, the main project. And then I break the time up because this is divided into half-hourly sections, which I absolutely love in the Hobonichi Cousin. I'll break it up into exactly what I want to be working on, particularly if it's a research project. So like yesterday, I was doing some revisions to a book manuscript, and I just kind of divided it by half hour according to like which point I wanted to be working on. So this is where I'll put my detailed work schedule. And in here, I'll just put like, say, Zalkinson, that's the topic of the book. So that's just my shorthand for that project. And there's no point in like kind of writing out in meticulous detail exactly everything that I'm going to be doing for that project, because I have it in here. So I don't want that much overlap, because then I would really be looking in two places all the time for the same information, which feels confusing to me and redundant. Not saying that it would be for everybody, but for me, that feels like that's too much overlap. I don't want that degree of detail in both planners because it feels redundant to me. But I would like to know, okay, I'm going to do my YouTube comments, Instagram comments, email, and then I'll have a snack, and then I'll take the boys out, and then I'll do Zalkinson, and that is going to occupy me really for the rest of the day. And then I can go in here when I want the details of how I'm going to be working on that. But then I'll go back to this for things like lunch and give the boys their lunch and take them out again, and then like, cleaning or something. So there's only a little bit of overlap between these two, just enough to give me an idea of how the layout of the day is going to go, and then I can refer back to this for the details. With this one, it kind of works in a similar way, except that because of the amount of space that there is in the weeks, I don't go into a huge amount of detail here. This more contains things that are unique events that have to be done on a particular day, and I will also put in some recurring things, like for example, the recycling has to go out every Monday night. So I put that in, like for every Monday night, because otherwise it would be very easy to forget that. Or James and I have been practicing Welsh, and so I put that in every day because we want to do some every day. But mostly it's things like something that has to be only done on one particular occasion, or like say once a week or something. Like Mochi needed his flea medicine here, and this is something that only happens once a month. So I'll put those things in before the day comes. Then when the day comes, I look at this in the morning, see what's on here, and then we'll transfer it into here in the rough order that I want to do it in. So I have this kind of vaguely divided into the early part of the day and then the later part of the day. So with this one, I have the stickers now and later. So this is like my kind of morning to sort of early afternoon column, and then this is my like late afternoon, evening column. So I like to get it so that I'm not looking at these two all the time. Although I do have them out when I'm working at home, I have them all out in front of me, so I can look at them all. But generally I like to check that I've copied everything from here into here so that I've slotted it into the right place. And then I'll just like kind of say to myself, okay, I don't need to check this anymore because everything is on here. If there are appointments or, something that I have to go out for, then I'll usually still keep checking this side. But I will probably put it in here in the approximate place that I think that it's going to need to go, so that I know that like I'm working on this and then I'm going to have to go out and do this. But it's still kind of in the form of a to-do list. So there is some overlap, but I don't have to like constantly keep checking between the two of them all the time. But this is really only on a daily basis. So it's like I never will need to refer back to anything, and I'll never need to refer to anything in the future. So you can see all of these future days are blank because I only use it on the day. So there is definitely a lot of overlap between these three, but I feel like it's done in a way where it's manageable and I know what each one is doing, if that makes sense. Then there's also overlap between all three of these and this planner. So this is the fourth addition to my core planner lineup, and this one is totally dispensable, but I absolutely love it, and so I feel like it's here to stay because it makes me really happy. And this is my week on 2 pages pretty planner, which I got just because I became addicted to the Mambi value pack stickers and I wanted to be able to use them, and I felt like I couldn't use them in my other planners for various reasons. They just didn't fit, or these two I don't use stickers in at all. Anyway, so I devised this, which I think was partially inspired by Miss Vicky B's video where she said that she's happy to have the same information in more than one place. And so I decided to have this week on 2 page pretty planner where I put in just my weekly overview, but it's all on stickers. And so it's just in a format that makes me really happy. And if I'm feeling anxious or depressed about the week, I just open this and it makes me feel like everything that's happening is a lot of fun and really colorful. So obviously this is all composed of the same types of information that goes into these planners. So how do I deal with that? The reason that I have it, like I said, is just because it's presented in this different format. And it's quite nice because I've got the division between work and personal. It's quite nice to see everything in one place. This one obviously is another way that I see everything in one place, but because this is daily, it's quite myopic in that it only shows me, one day or at the most 2 days. But because I don't forward plan in this, I don't know what's happening for the rest of the week if I look at this. That's not what it's for. So that's what this one is for. And this is really just to give me a kind of overall picture of the week and also to make it a bit more fun. So I put things in like my general teaching schedule. So I don't put in, exactly everything that I'm doing for work, obviously, because that goes in here. And I don't really need to, but I put in things like I'm going to be in university teaching from 2 until 5. Or here I have this work-related appointment. Here I'm going to be in the department all day. So I get a general overview. This is not really necessary because I could just look at my work planner and my personal planner and see the same information, but it would be presented in a totally different format and it's not together. So here I just get this nice colorful overview of my week. I know when I'm home, I know when I'm not home, I know when James is in the market. That's another thing. So you can see here it says James in market. So those are the days when he's working. And I also put that in my personal planner. So here it says James in market. And then next week, James in market, James in market, James in market. So that is information which I put at least in this planner and this planner. And then sometimes I also put it in this planner because it kind of affects what I'm going to be able to do. If I'm at home and working and I have to take the boys out, then I kind of need to know that because that's going to give me a little bit less time and I have to budget that into my work schedule for the day. And also if he's in the market and I'm in university, then sometimes I need to know so that I can book the dog sitters so that they're not at home on their own for too long. So it's kind of relevant to work as well, but I do that sporadically. I don't always do it. I only do it if I feel like there's a particular reason that I really need to remember that in a work context. So that's a bit of overlap, which sometimes I feel like is necessary and sometimes I don't. So as you can see, the system is not like totally perfect in that it's not like I know exactly which things I'm going to put in multiple planners 100% of the time, but most of the time I have a general idea of what's going to go in more than one. So work schedules and then other appointments that I have go in here. So you can see the dentist appointment is here. So I've got this dentist appointment in 3 different planners, which some might say is a bit silly, but there are reasons why I think it makes sense to have it in all of those. In this planner, it's because it's a personal appointment. In this planner, it's because it affects what kinds of appointments I can book for work. And in this planner, it's because it's part of my daily or my weekly overview. I wouldn't put it in this planner probably because I only use this one at home. So in this one for Monday, I would do something like write down all of the stuff that I have to do at home before I leave, which would be like get up, get dressed, brush teeth, give Tails his eye medicine, try to have something for breakfast, etc. And then go in. And then it would be blank for the rest of the day. And then when I came home, I would write in the evening tasks. So I also put in things like security. So security at the synagogue, that's in here again. So that is in these two planners. And I don't find this onerous because the whole point of this planner is for fun. This is just to make me feel excited about the week in the way that, like, I love my Hobonichis, but this is just a sort of different feeling because it's just full of all the stickers. And so I really enjoy it. And in the evening, I look forward to getting out the stickers and putting in the things for the next day or for the next week. So I really enjoy it. Sometimes I put tasks in here which might overlap with either the work tasks or the personal tasks or the daily tasks. But as you can see, this doesn't have a lot of room, so you can't go into too much detail. And this is like my kind of secondary planner in that the world wouldn't end if I didn't have this, whereas the world would end if I didn't have my work and personal planners and the daily planner to some extent. So, like, for example, I put in that I was going to be working on, let's see, a particular work project. Here, I put in work, and I was at home, but I put in these days what I was going to be working on, even though I didn't really need to. It was just for fun. So I wouldn't put that sort of thing in here because I make this very clear distinction that this is just personal stuff. So as you can see, like, the only types of overlap, the only kind of overlap that there is between these two is appointments, where I feel like there is really a practical need to have them both. But for this one, sometimes I'll put in a bit of work stuff even though I don't actually need it, just to give me a picture of what that day is going to look like. But I wouldn't go into any kind of detail, if you see what I mean. So this also has some information which is not in the other ones, like meal planning and like hydrate, which again I do just for fun because I've got the stickers for it. Sometimes I try to put the meal planning in here as well, but I kind of feel like it's not as necessary. I sort of like the idea of only being dependent on these two main planners, so that, I don't know, if for some reason I realized that I needed to cut back or something, that, or I could just take these two with me, that I wouldn't be missing any information. But the meal planning I feel like is not so essential, and so often I don't bother writing it in here, and it just goes in here. But that's one where occasionally there is some overlap because I like the idea of having it in here as well. So now we move on to the planners that are shared between me and James. So the first one is our original home planner, which this isn't actually the original one that we have, but we've had this for quite a while now. And this is mainly used just to show our joint schedules, and we have it out on the table so that if one of us is out, the other one knows how long they'll be gone for. So generally I'm the only person who puts stuff in this, but James looks at it. He assures me that he looks at it. And he says that he finds it useful. Just in case it seems like I'm inflicting my crazy planner addict ways on him, he says that he likes it. So here I put that the sofa was coming because I thought that that was something that would be useful for both of us to know, because we both need to be here when the sofa comes so that we can carry it up the last flight of stairs. And I put that we're both at home, which was not really necessary. And so here I've put my work schedule, and this is for James so that he knows how long I'm going to be gone. And then I put in when he's in the market, and he's always at the market for like roughly the same amount of time, so I haven't put the hours in. This is for me, but this is actually quite redundant because, as you've seen, I have it in here. Sometimes I have it in here, and then I also put it in here. So really, I often ask myself, why do I put it here? Because if this is for both of us, like, he already knows when he's in the market, and I've got it in my other planner, so I really don't need to put it here as well. And I just put it in because it's a joint schedule book, so I feel like it shouldn't just have my schedule in it. It should have both of our schedules. And sometimes I look at it because it's out on the table. So this is like kind of, you know, legit redundancy that probably is not very necessary, but like, that is my custom. So I think I'll keep doing that, at least for now. And then I put in other things that affect both of us, like our friend coming over on Friday night. So that's there. And then the security is there again. So I think the security is in like 3 different planners, the security duty. And then going out for dinner with our friend, again, because that's something that affects both of us. And then the week after, we are starting our Welsh class. So I put in this Mambi sticker, big day. And what the time of the Welsh class, because again, that's something that we're both going to. And then I also put in birthday because it's James's birthday. So our birthdays are 2 weeks apart, which is quite nice. And so that is all that this planner has in it, but all of this is redundant. This is all in either my work planner or my personal planner or the pretty planner. So you could say this whole planner is just complete overlap. That's its sole purpose. And the reason that it's there is because this is something that we both look at, whereas like James doesn't look at these planners, although he could. It's not like they're secret, but you know, it's just that I have them, they're not out on the table, and this one is where we can both see everything that's going on. So this is completely made up of overlap. And I think that's fine because that's what it's for. Now, the next one is our dirty home planner. So this is used for home tasks. And again, this is something that we both look at. So here I will put in, and we've only been using it for a couple of weeks, so this is still kind of in the experimental phase, but so far it seems to be working quite well. Here I'll put in all of the home related tasks that generally they are recurrent. So either they're daily or every other day or once a week, but they're things that either of us could do and should both know about. And the reason that they don't go in here is that, as you can see, there's more of these than would fit in here because this is very minimal in terms of it's only a week on one page. You don't have a lot of space, and because I use stickers, it wouldn't really work well to put all of those tasks in here, and it's nicer just to have a completely different planner for it. And also, obviously, it's an excuse to have another planner. So a lot of this information is also overlapping with the other planners. Some of it is stuff that James has to do that I don't put in my other planners, but then I kind of feel like maybe I should. So for example, he sells some bags of his designs on Amazon, tote bags, and he has to send them to Amazon because they are in our studio and they are taking up a lot of room. And so that has been on the to-do list for a while, and I don't put that in here because this is like not something that I need to know about, but it's something that I wanted to remind him to do. So I put them in here, and then the idea is that he would check it and remember that he has to do it. So there are some things like that which aren't in any other planner, but then there are a lot of things like Welsh, which I put in practice Welsh, which is something that, as you've seen, it's in this planner as well. And then all of the stuff that we do on Friday to get ready for Shabbat, all of the cleaning, I put all of that in. And I also put all of that in my daily planner because this is the sort of thing that I wouldn't put in my personal planner because it's like, it's not really something that I need to remember. I guess this is more things that I need to make sure that I remember to do. Whereas the daily planner is more spelling out exactly what's going to happen. So you can see for yesterday, I listed all those things because it's the same every week. And I know that when Shabbat is coming that I'm going to have to do those things. So I really just want to see them here so that I can tick them off, but I don't have to put them in my personal planner as well. But I put them in here too because if James is home and not in the market on Friday, then we split up these tasks. So I thought it would be useful for him to be able to see the list as well. And then there's some things like changing Tails and Mochi's water, which we try to do every other day. So I put that in here because that's something that either of us could do. I also want to have it in here. I don't think this week that I remembered to put it in here, but I would like to put it in here as well so that if I forget to look at this, which is a danger, I guess, when you have all these different planners, that you might forget to look at one of them, especially one of the more niche or less essential ones. I'd like to have it in here as well so that if I look at this, it will remind me and then I can put it on my daily to-do list. So a lot of the stuff in here will also be in my personal planner or will go on my daily planner because I'd like this to be, I guess, my like kind of ultimate inbox right before the things happen. That's how I think of this planner. This is like whatever I've planned to do, it goes in here before it happens, unless it's something that I didn't remember to write in any planner and I just do it and don't get to record it. In which case I sometimes will write it in here and then tick it off just so that I have the satisfaction of seeing that I did it. So this planner is also comprised mostly of overlapping information. And again, I've asked myself since we started this, is this really useful? Should we have it? Is it too much overlap? Is it too much redundancy? But I think for now we discussed it and we decided that we're going to keep trying it. If it feels like it's like I'm just copying this information out and nobody's looking at it and I have it in here or in here as well, and James doesn't look at it and I just have to remind him verbally to do the things, then I think I'll probably give this up, because I don't want to have reduplication just for the sake of having another planner if nobody's using it. I think where overlap is useful is, in places where I have this established system like the work planner and the personal planner. So the dentist appointment example, I think, is a good example of that, where I feel like it's very practical having the dentist appointment in here and also in here, and then also in here just for fun because it makes me happy. But if it's not serving a purpose, and like if nobody is checking this, then I might as well just write all that information in my personal planner and put this on the shelf of unused planners and wait for another use to appear for it. So I'm not really sure about this, because I think that there is a place for having that degree of overlap if people are using it, but it's kind of too early to tell if it's going to stand the test of time. So now we reach the final planner, which is also totally overlapping, and you might think that this is the most ridiculous of them all. This was also something that I bought from Amazon with my birthday money vouchers. So I've only had this for a few days because my birthday was on the 3rd. But what happened is I was just stalking Amazon and looking at the Happy Planner stuff that they had available, and I just bought it because I had the Amazon vouchers and I kind of missed having a classic size Happy Planner. So at the time I didn't actually have a good reason for buying it, which is often the case with new planners. But as soon as it came, like I mentioned in a recent video, that often I like to think about what to do with a new planner, and it's kind of like a sort of satisfying challenge that stops my brain from worrying about bigger things. So I was like, what will I do with this planner? And I was quite enjoying thinking, what could I do with it when I already have so many planners? And then the thought came to me, and this is what we've been using it for, and it's been working really well so far. So you might think this is mad, but James and I often have this issue in the evenings where we feel like somehow we always have like tons of things to do in the evenings, and it gets really late and we get into a panic because there's still so much stuff to do. I think a lot of it is related to having dogs, because like they need to have their dinner and then they need to go out, and then they often like they'll come back from going out, and then like they have to have kind of another final trip out before we go to bed, and sometimes I like to have a snack. So I think they take up some time, but some of it is like, I'm not really sure why we have such crazy evenings. I don't know if everybody else is like this or not, but it just feels like our evenings are always like much busier and more stressful than we want them to be, and we never have enough time to do all the stuff that we want to do. Some of it is probably because I get up late when I'm at home, and so my whole day starts late, and then everything else like kind of just is later. But what I decided is that it would be quite nice for us to have an evening planner where I just list out everything that we have to do in chronological order for the evening, timed. And you might say that is exactly the same as this planner. And indeed, there's quite a lot of overlap, which is why I'm talking about it in this video. Because this planner, you can see a day where I wrote down a lot of evening stuff. So like here, there's quite a lot of evening stuff. This was, or we'll look at this one because this is the day that I started using this. So this is all evening stuff. So some of this is like things that I had to do that didn't concern James, or that I could do at the same time as he was doing something else. This is like literally everything that I have to do, but it's not timed. So the Hobonichi A6 does have this timeline, but I don't find it useful because it's so squished that I feel like it's like you get one line per hour, and I feel like that doesn't really work, so I just ignore it. So I kind of try to map things out in chronological order, but I can't tell exactly how long each thing will take. And also it doesn't have the stuff that James has to do. So with this, and it might seem like completely mad because this is supposed to be for a whole day. Why are we just using it for the evening? But it is for two of us. So somehow it seems to be working so far, and we've been using it all week. As you can see, it's working really well and is helping a bit. So I divided it into time. So you have the 3 sections. So I said this is 6:30 until 8, this is 8 until 10, and this is 10 until midnight. And so we've tried to gauge like how much could we reasonably do in usually we actually don't end up starting this until 7. So like in an hour or an hour and a half. And then we've written down all the things. While James is doing that, I'll do this. And then from 8 until 10. So, and then from, again, like, what could we reasonably do in those 2 hours? And then try to make sure that we get it all done before it gets too late, so that in the 10 till 12 slot, we're just like taking the boys out, giving them their snack, giving Tails his eye medicine, and then like, you know, maybe one other thing. So things like Welsh practice, we're like, oh, we have to have dinner, we have to make dinner, we have to have dinner, we have to do Welsh practice, we have to take the boys down, we have to give them it's like all of that kind of stuff. It just gets very stressful. And so trying to put these in order and work out who does what and when is helping a bit. And I really hope that this is just temporary and that we can somehow get the evenings sorted out and not like be so stressful all the time. And we won't have to plan at this level of detail for the rest of our lives. But for now, it seems to be helping, and it gives me an excuse to use another planner, and I'm enjoying it. So this obviously all pretty much overlaps with something which is usually in this planner, because it's the sort of like everyday detailed mundane things that I wouldn't put in any other planner besides this one, like make dinner. So we're like, who makes dinner? Okay, well, that person is making the dinner, the other person is doing these things. And so generally they are things that are in here, and I do end up having some redundancy between them. But I think that this is still quite useful because, again, it's presenting the information in a different format. Perhaps you're thinking, if you didn't spend so much time planning, then you wouldn't have such busy evenings. But actually, the planning really doesn't take very long at all. It's like, takes, you know, like 1 minute or 30 seconds to list out all the things that I have to do, and then maybe another 30 seconds to list them down here. So it's really not like much of an investment in time. So this is like kind of a mix of things that I have in my daily planner and things that aren't anywhere else because they're things that James has to do. Or like, for example, here it says the washing up, so washing the dishes. This is something that I might put in here, but often I forget to put that kind of thing in. So it's only when we're discussing things together, we just like briefly have a chat about like, okay, what are we going to do in the evening so that we can get it sorted out and try to become more efficient with the evenings. So I quite like crossing the things off, and often I will end up crossing them off twice. And so I'm not sure if this is going to become a permanent fixture, but it's just that it's working for now. And I think this is something that I've also been thinking about, is the concept of temporary planners, like having a planner that you don't use with a view to have it be part of your system forever, but that you just introduce at a particular time when you feel like you need it for whatever reason. And so I think that's what this might be. So you might say it's totally inefficient to have the same information here and also here. But again, for one thing, James can see this. This includes information that about stuff that he's going to be doing, which isn't in here. And also it has it very clearly marked out by time. And then we can see like exactly how our evening is going to go. Whereas this is more my own personal tasks, some of which I might do at the same time as these things here. But these are the like kind of, in this amount of time, this is what has to get done for the stuff that we are concerned about for the evening. So I hope that makes sense. These are like kind of general overall evening tasks that we need to do for the evening to go well. Whereas on here, if James is making dinner, I'm not going to list dinner here, but it still needs to happen. And we need to know how much time it's going to take for the evening to kind of not turn into a disaster, because often we'll just like end up eating dinner at like 10 o'clock at night and then taking the boys out at exactly the same time, and it's just a big mess. So I don't know why, but that somehow seems to be the situation. So as you can see, between all of these planners, there is quite a bit of overlap, but I feel like in most cases, the overlap makes sense and is justified in my head. Although, you know, another person might say that having that much overlap between different planners is totally unnecessary, and that I should cut a lot of the planners out of the lineup, and then I wouldn't have as much overlap, which might be possible. I think particularly between the ones that are not part of my core system, the ones that are shared. So there's quite a big division between these three, these home planners, and the other four. I'll just put them into two different piles so you can see what I mean more clearly. So these are my like core planners. And then these are the joint planners. And so all of the information in the joint planners is stuff that overlaps with the information in my core planning system to some extent, right? So you could say, just get rid of these 3 planners. But the reason that we have these 3 planners is because it is for both of us to look at, and it seems to be serving some kind of purpose. So I think for now we're going to keep them. And then as for the overlap between these planners, I feel like it's quite manageable and there isn't a huge amount of overlap. What there is kind of, it basically, there's very little overlap aside from appointments. There's no overlap between these 2. And then these 2, like I said, are just different ways of presenting this information. This is my daily to-do list and this is my weekly overview. So I feel like these both serve a purpose and I really like having them in my lineup. And the overlap is either practical, helps me to get things done in the way that I want to do them, or I just enjoy it. So I think that those are like kind of the 2 ways, I guess, that I have overlap. Is one is between the joint planners and my personal, my only planners. And then the other one is between my different planners, my different personal planners. So in conclusion, I think that for me, overlap between planners is something that generally I'd like to avoid where possible, but that sometimes it can be quite a useful tool if you want to see things presented in a different way or in a different context, or you just want to make sure to, avoid double booking yourself, which is really the issue with these 2. So at the most basic level, I think that's quite important. Even if you only have 2 planners, say a work and a personal planner, it's good to keep the appointments in both of them, where there's a chance that not having them in both could lead to mix-ups. And other than that, it's really just a matter of personal preference, like how many planners you want to have and what type of information you think is useful or helpful to you to have in more than one of them, without it getting too overwhelming that you can't remember what you've put where, which is always the balance. So those are just my thoughts at the moment. That might change. Probably by 1 book July, I'll be really ready to get rid of some of these and I'll want to simplify. But what happened last 1 book July is after 2 weeks, I really missed having my other planners and I ended up adding them back in. And by August, I had more planners than I had before July. So we will see what happens. That's usually the way of it. So I hope that you enjoyed this. And as always, thank you so much for watching and I'll be back again soon. Bye.